All right, savages, people are set up for failure all the time in sales. You hear about it, you hear the horror stories. But the question is, how do you know if you're one of those people? How do you know if you're being set up for failure? And what I'm going to walk you through are the red flags to look for so that you can know whether or not you need to get the hell out of there. And I learned this from being involved in coaching and interviewing thousands of sales reps over the last decade plus. And I've also made bad career decisions myself. So I'm flawed too. So what I'm going to walk you through is number one is actually black flags, things to know, like you see this, you get out. Number two, red flags, these are the breadcrumbs. And then pro tips. So if you do identify any of these situations, what do you do? Right? So let's get right into it. So the three black flags that I look at. Number one is right when you join the company. If you just show up and they lie to you about what the role is, this doesn't happen often, but you should probably look to exit stage left pretty quickly, because that's not a great sign if they're just not transparent about what the role is. I'll give you an example. If they say, hey, you're not going to have to do any hunting, and then day one you realize 90% of what you're doing is hunting. There's nothing wrong with hunting or not hunting. What's wrong is they weren't honest with you, and that's the issue here. Number two, harassment, bullying of any kind. If you're unsure, that's where a coach or mentor can help you assess that. But if people are honestly bullying you and harassing you and making you feel like you're not worthy, you're not enough, that's a pretty big black flag in my opinion. And number three, this is a pretty obvious one, but I have seen it before. I've had a client where was coaching him, and when I dug into the situation, he didn't get paid for the last 2 months. What are you supposed to live off of? Hopes and dreams? No, get out of there. You're in sales. So those are the three black flags. These are pretty obvious, black and white. Now let's get into the red flags, because those could be a little bit more nuanced. So number one, no one is successful or a lack of success. What I always like to say is, look, I might have long hair, but I'm not Jesus. I can't turn water into wine. You do not work in product. You do not work in marketing. You do not work in finance. You do not work in customer success. These are all parts of the business that have a direct impact on your ability to sell. And if no one is successful around you, and no one's been successful for a long period of time, it's probably not you. It's probably the situation. Number two, lack of clarity on what's most important. I worked with a client not too long ago, and when he joined the company, I said, hey, let me see the compensation plan, because he had questions about it. In the compensation plan, it wasn't clear what his goals are. I'm joining a company, and you're not clear to me what my goals are, what my key performance indicators are, what I'm going to be responsible for is. You're not clear on that. That's a pretty big red flag. If they're asking you to do strategy, you're not hired as a VP of sales. You're hired as an account executive. Don't try to do 3 roles at once. If they're not giving you black and white clarity on what's most important as an individual contributor, that's a red flag. Number 3, unrealistic expectations. If the company has never sold 50K deals and you're coming in and they're saying, hey, we expect you to close 5 50K deals within 90 days of joining the company, that's ridiculous. That's never been done before. So those are very unrealistic expectations. So the things that they're asking you to do, have they been done by other people? Because if it's unrealistic, guess what happens? You're not going to make any money. It doesn't matter what your OTE is. What matters is your earning potential. And unrealistic expectations kill any chance of you maximizing your comp plan. I'm sure if you're watching this, there's probably a good chance you got into sales because you're trying to make a lot of money. You're not going to do that if there's no shot in hell of you being able to meet the expectations, because they're completely unrealistic and they're not backed by any data at all. Number 4, you're feeling whiplash. What whiplash means is you feel like every other month there's a massive new initiative for the company or the organization. That's whiplash. And once or twice it happens, because especially if you're at a startup, they do need to make strategic pivots. But if you're feeling like every month, every quarter, there's a new shiny object that the company's chasing after, that means they don't have a clear understanding of where they're trying to take the company, and the vision is fuzzy. That tells me that there's major red flags at the executive level, things that are outside of your control. And constant whiplash, all it does is, again, make it harder for you to do your job and hit the goals that are put in front of you. So if we see that, you should definitely be concerned. Number 5, not seeking and implementing feedback. Now, this goes under 2 categories. Number one is go to market. Number two is product. So on the go to market side, we'll start there. Go to market. This is customer facing, typically marketing, sales, customer success. So if your leadership is not coming to you seeking feedback on, hey, how can we support you more? What messaging from marketing is working or resonating? What can we improve? What's not resonating? If they're not even coming to you, especially at a smaller company, and asking these questions, that means they probably aren't in touch with what the customers are saying. The caveat is, if they are jumping on customer calls themselves and speaking to that, I could see how they may not ask you for a lot of feedback if they're talking to customers directly. But if they're not doing either, that's a red flag on that. And then on the product side, you're in the trenches selling every day. So you're the one that knows best what's moving the needle and what's not to get deals across the finish line. Are they seeking feedback on what's getting your deals across? Are they seeking feedback on the features and parts of the platform that need to improve in order for you to stop losing deals? Right? Number one is are they even looking for that feedback from you? As sales, really important. Number two, are they implementing it? This is really, really important because it doesn't matter if you're seeking feedback if you're not actually doing anything about it. I was at a situation myself where we had our customers and our prospects, we were losing deals for the same reason over and over again. And we were shouting the feedback from the rooftops, but the product wasn't improving. So because of that, it became abundantly clear that we were just beating our head against the wall, and the powers that be, they weren't listening to us. So don't be in that situation. Number 6, this builds on not implementing feedback. If you feel like you're losing to the competition more and more and more, usually that means the competition is innovating faster than you, because the best strategy doesn't win. The best organization that pivots and evolves over and over again faster, those are the ones that typically win. So let's say day one, you might have a competitive advantage, which is great. But if you're winning 2/3 of the deals day one, but 18 months later, you're only winning 1 in 10 deals, that's a red flag that you guys aren't innovating fast enough to keep up with your competition. So look out for that. Number 7, this goes to you selfishly. They don't prioritize your development. Don't tell me you care about me as an employee. Don't tell me that we're a family and that we're all going to do big things and crush it and change the world. Show me with your actions every day that you actually give a shit about my growth and development. Do role plays with me. Jump on calls, right? Ask me how I'm doing. Ask me what's standing in my way. Even if you don't have a lot of time to coach me, or even any time to coach me, can you do things to communicate in the organization to help remove roadblocks, things that are preventing me from being successful? See the numbers above, right? Do they actually care about me with their actions, not their words? And if they're not prioritizing that, especially your manager, that's something you should really consider as a red flag if you're going to be stuck with them for a long time. And then number 8, you're not in a culture of excellence. So here's what I mean, because this is harder to pick up on. Your environments matter. And you've probably heard the phrase, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So you don't want to show up to work every day surrounded by a bunch of C players, because all that's going to do is lower your standards over time. That's going to rub off on you. And I remember this myself because I made a poor decision to join a company for the wrong reasons. I made the mistakes. Shame on me. And what I quickly realized after working there was I was surrounded by people that weren't hungry. They weren't trying to figure things out fast. They weren't moving at the same clip that I was. So because of that, I was a square peg in a round hole, and it wasn't a fit. So you need to understand, and it's hard to assess this in the interview process, but once you get in the door, if you could just tell no one around you is operating at the same clip, in terms of speed, no one around you is trying to improve at that level, right? That's going to rub off on you. So you want to be worried about that. So those are the 8 red flags. So here's some pro tips for you to think about when you run into these things. Number 1, have empathy. Look, I know I talk about red flags and getting the hell out of there, but if you're joining smaller companies, which I'm sure a bunch of you are, they're not perfect. They're learning, they're growing. So don't just assume that if something's not perfect from day one, that they're out to get you. Very, very rarely are they actually out to get you and actually being deceiving. They're doing their best to having empathy and understand that when you joined the organization, hey, you committed that you were also going to be a part of the solution to help grow that. So step one is have some empathy, give them a little grace with it. Number two, don't look for landmines. Where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're looking for all the things that are wrong, guess what? You're going to find all the things that are wrong. Okay. And if you're just looking for that, all it's going to do is reinforce the bias of why you're not going to be successful. So although I'm giving you tips on how to look for red flags, I don't want you to fall into the trap of you thinking, oh, my manager cut my one-on-one by 15 minutes. Oh, they don't care about me, right? You're overreacting. So don't look for landmines. Think about these as like breadcrumbs to look out for. And when they start to stack up, that's when you should really be concerned. Number three, understand pressure versus poison. Pressure is a privilege. Pressure creates diamonds. So if you're in a high pressure environment, I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't see that as a red flag. In fact, I see it as the opposite. If you're in a high pressure environment, what that means is they have really high standards. So that probably means you're in a culture of excellence, right? So understand that, if it's getting you really uncomfortable and pushing you out of your comfort zone, it could just be the perfect environment that you need to help you grow. Versus poison, it's just a toxic environment and they don't care about you with all their actions, right? So understand the difference in pressure and poison. Number four, seek third-party validation first. If you're seeing red flags here, go to a mentor, go to a coach, go to someone that you could trust that's unbiased outside of the organization and say, hey, am I crazy? This is what I'm seeing. And if there's someone that knows what to look for, they'll ask a lot of questions around the context to help you understand whether you're crazy. I'll tell you a story. I had a client of mine that had a really uncomfortable conversation with their one-on-one. They ended up getting into a shouting match. And they came to me and said, look, I think my manager is no good. I think they're crazy. Like, I don't think it's going to work out from here. And I dug into it and I said, well, tell me about the situation. And they walked me through the situation of what caused the manager to get upset. And what ended up happening is this person called out their manager in an unprofessional way to other peers. So of course the manager is going to be upset because of how they handled it. So I went to my client at the time and I said, look, I'm not saying the manager shouldn't have raised their voice, but you are the reason why this situation happened. So this is majority on you. So that's the value of like having a coach or a mentor that you can go to. They can give you that unbiased opinion on whether or not you're in the right or the wrong. Number five, don't rush any major decisions. Even if these breadcrumbs are stacking up, don't rush any decisions because I've seen this way too many times. And by the way, I did this too. When I was in a tough situation, I wasn't focusing on where I was trying to go. I was focusing on running away from where I was. And because of that, I rushed my decision to move, to take the next step in my career. And I ended up joining the wrong company for the wrong reasons. So don't rush these decisions for it. And then what I want you to do instead is create an exit strategy. So think about what's missing from your current role, figure out where you're trying to go, what's going to excite you. And then last but not least, I want you to learn from keyword your mistakes. I made the mistakes myself. I made the decision to join the situation that I did and I wasn't happy. So you're not perfect here either. Chalk this up as a learning lesson because you didn't ask all the right questions in the interview process to flesh this out. I'm not saying you can flesh out all of these in the interview, but a good amount of them you can. So what I would say for you is if you find yourself in this situation, if you're going to be leaving, make sure you figure out the right questions to ask for the next interview process so you don't make the same mistake again. So hope this is helpful. My name is Justin J. Johnson, founder and creator of the Beautiful Savage Sales Academy. Use this, implement it, go burn it down. I'll see you in the next video.